Hey everybody, I'm Vladimir G. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. If it's happening on one of these monitors behind me here, we're going to bring it to you live right here. This is CBS News 24/7. Let's begin. Final weekend of the 2024 presidential campaign is here. We're going to break down where the candidates are heading and their last-minute messages to undecided voters. The October jobs report is out, and it's a big miss. We'll dive into the data from the Labor Department and examine what it means for the potential of an interest rate cut later this month. And 2 are dead and 6 have been injured in a mass shooting in Orlando overnight as Halloween celebrations were in full swing. Details on how officers responded. This is CBS News 24/7. We're going to have a lot more on that jobs report in just a minute, but let's begin with the final push for both presidential campaigns. Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris have just 4 more days to shore up support from undecided voters before Election Day. Candidates are turning their focus down to the Midwest. Both Trump and Harris will head to Wisconsin today. The former president will also hold a rally at a college in Michigan. Trump's rally strategy has been to hurl insults at Harris and her campaign surrogates. Yesterday, during a fireside chat with Tucker Carlson, though, he used violent language and imagery, suggesting former GOP Congresswoman Liz Cheney should have guns pointed at her face. Listen.
His daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
All right, let's bring in CBS News campaign reporter Jake Rosen. He's joining me now from our bureau in Washington. Jake, you've covered the Trump campaign for some time now. We know that the president uses rhetoric, oftentimes childish, sometimes rhetoric that is dangerous. In this case, a former president of the United States suggesting that guns should be trained at the face of a woman who simply just disagrees with him politically. What's the reaction from Trump's camp on this attack on Liz Cheney?
Well, the Trump campaign has tried to make clear in kind of cleaning up this comment that it was in reference to Liz Cheney's policies on past U.S. wars and her general foreign affairs and foreign policy views. Obviously, that being said, he was still suggesting that 9 guns be pointed in her face, especially in the political climate that former Representative Cheney had to deal with for a long time, as she was on that January 6th committee where a lot of those members were facing constant threats. And the Harris campaign has clung on to this as well. A spokesperson for the campaign saying that this is a reference to firing squads, in addition to Liz Cheney herself saying that this is the language of dictators, and that, again, reaffirming her support for Vice President Harris.
All right, let me ask you about this now. The former president attempted to sway Muslim voters last week in Michigan, and he described Liz Cheney and other Harris supporters as anti-Muslim. Trump is headed to the Detroit metro area, which, as you know, has a large Arab American community. What do we expect to hear from him this afternoon?
Well, Donald Trump's argument has been that, again, like a lot of these groups that his campaign has micro-targeted, especially in Michigan, is that his foreign affairs policy in terms of starting no new wars, making sure that America focuses on itself and helps communities of immigrants who are here legally, they believe that that applies well to communities like Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. The 2 mayors of majority Muslim or Arab American cities have endorsed Donald Trump in the last couple of weeks. They've touted those endorsements. He had a number of imams on stage last weekend to tout their support for him and speak about, again, his foreign affairs views and how they align with that. Again, this kind of fits into the bigger picture of Vice President Harris and her campaign struggles to kind of rein in her supporters' views on the war in Gaza, and basically saying, if you don't agree with Vice President Harris, I will be the one to make sure that there's peace in the Middle East. Whether that's true or not, we saw the same amount of drama has kind of happened over both administrations.
President Biden won Dearborn by a 3-1 margin in 2020. We're talking, of course, about the conflict in the Middle East, which perhaps has changed the way people feel about President Biden and thus Vice President Kamala Harris. But the question that I have, and which is one that I think a lot of people are wondering about, are those folks in those communities suggesting that Donald Trump would be a better president, for example, for people of Palestinian descent living in Dearborn, Michigan, or elsewhere in the United States? Is that the message that they are coming away with?
Well, that's the message that the Trump campaign is trying to deliver, although when you talk to voters, and as our team here at CBS and our political department has talked to these voters, it's nuanced, right, in terms of while these people might want peace in the Middle East and they might not think that the Biden administration and potentially a future Harris administration are doing enough for the people of Palestine and people around all of the Middle East right now with the conflict going on, they don't necessarily think, in all cases, that Donald Trump would be the right person to take them out of this war in Gaza and to be strong on Israel in terms of actually stopping this. We've seen over the last couple of weeks, Donald Trump at the same time has leaned into his conversations with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that he would give Netanyahu the ability to do whatever he felt was right to end that war. Again, that's in a direct contrast to kind of this message that they're trying to make in communities like in Michigan and Dearborn.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Jake Rosen for us this morning. Jake, thank you very much. And in the final days of her campaign, Vice President Harris remains laser focused on the key issue of abortion rights. Listen.
Now, 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban. Many with no exceptions for rape or incest. You know what? Let me say something about this. We're here because we're fighting for a democracy.
CBS News correspondent Lily Luciano is joining us now from Las Vegas to talk about this. So, Lily, the abolishment of Roe versus Wade by way of the Trump administration has been something that the vice president has been focused on over the course of her campaign as she pushes for abortion protections. Clearly, the former president, his language has been to suggest that this is what America wanted, when in fact polling, including CBS News polling, shows that is not what most Americans, the majority of Americans, wanted to see, the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So how is she driving that message home?
Oh, we heard a lot about abortion, about women's rights, about women's agency over their bodies, women's health care during the rally last night, Vlad. She also encouraged voters who were attending the rally to vote yes on this question in the Nevada ballot, which asks to protect abortion rights here in the state as part of the Constitution up until viability of the fetus. There was a lot of talk about women's rights. I heard from women, Latina women, American white women, we heard from black women, all kind of really stressing the importance of protecting abortion rights within the state and as part of what's driving them to vote. There was also a great deal of attention paid to the Latino community. They're 20% of the electorate here, 30% of the population in the state of Nevada, which is constantly changing. And we have seen that Democrats, that lead that they had over the last several presidential elections has been shrinking. So both candidates were here in the state. They were not far from each other in Nevada. And talking about women's issues, yesterday Trump used the term, the father of IVF once again in his rallies. But what I heard from women, especially in this rally, young women, older women, was that precisely that issue is what's driving their vote. The other thing that Kamala Harris talked about a great deal was about Gen Z. She applauded first-time voters. She thanked them for being there. I heard from young men and young women there. And what the young men talked to me about, and I asked them because, we've seen a lot of young, and these were young Latinos who were there at the venue, at the rally. We've seen that they have been supporting Trump at increasing rates. What a few of them told me is that they're voting based on Trump's character, that they don't feel that they're identified with it, and that certainly those comments from last weekend's rally did have an impact on how they feel about former President Trump, about the campaign. And last night, I know that you know a lot about Latin music. Maná was there playing. They played some of their greatest hits. This is the biggest surviving, I would say, rock en español band, just because, of course, there are others, but they're no longer playing or their members have passed on. So they were playing. A lot of people were, chanting and saying, we love to see Maná represented, to see and hear Vice President Harris connect with Latinos. And, of course, we had J-Lo, the superstar of that rally, too, also speaking en español in terms of getting that support for them.
Yeah, so Mana's a big deal. I wonder also, I mean, Democrats typically have, because of just the nature of the party, big-time movie stars, celebrities, and pop stars supporting Kamala Harris. The question, of course, is does J-Lo bring them out in the same way that Mana brings them out, in the same way that Bad Bunny expressing his support with his 20 million-plus followers across social media? Do you think that J-Lo's message resonates with voters?
You know, yesterday, J-Lo presented herself as you would expect, with all of this energy. She talked about how she's played in Vegas many times. I think there's this message, especially with the Puerto Rican celebrities. I mean, J-Lo, Mark Anthony last night had a concert in Fort Worth, and he also had a very specific message to Latinos about voting and about pride of being Latino in this country. I think that there has been kind of this centering of these Latino celebrity voices to come out, and the announcement of J-Lo and Maná came out later. Yesterday, Kamala Harris was with Los Tigres del Norte, who are the biggest, most legendary traditional Mexican music in Arizona. So, I mean, what I'm hearing from people yesterday, yes, I came to see Kamala Harris, not Maná, but it's good to see that our voices are being heard, that we're being considered, that our cultural symbols are centered. So it's certainly something that I think here in places where, in states like this one, where the Latino vote is so crucial and where the election is so close, people are, I guess, in the campaigns hoping to hear that have an impact.
And Lilia, you no doubt saw that report from Caitlin Huey-Burns that suggested that she talked to one voter who was going to vote for Donald Trump until those racist remarks at that New York City Madison Square Garden rally, and that person said, I'm no longer voting for Donald Trump, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. So it definitely has had an impact. Lilia Luciano for us. You have heard that as well. Yeah, that's what voters are telling you as well. Oh, yeah. All right, Lilia, always great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. New data from the Labor Department shows that the U.S. just added about 12,000 jobs in the month of October. The unemployment rate remained steady at 4.1%. This latest data did not meet expectations. Analysts had predicted that the U.S. would add around 117,000 jobs. So let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady to break down this data and try to understand or explain to our viewers why the analysts were so wrong about this, Kelly.
Yeah, so I think the headline going into this was expect the unexpected, and that's exactly what happened. So there are a lot of noisy things in this report. I mean, we're dealing with the impacts of Hurricanes Helene and Milton, as well as the Boeing strike, as well as some others. So look, I don't want to downplay it. 12,000 that we added, that is a low number. It is off of that 117,000, but it was really hard to predict going into this. There were a couple winners and losers that I just want to give a shout to you. So education and healthcare, that added 57,000. The big loser was manufacturing, Vlad. That lost 46,000. Part of that is because of the strike, right? The Boeing strike.
Yeah, we had Jared Bernstein on earlier this week, and he actually told us on the air, look, when the jobs numbers come out on Friday, I'm saying it here first, we're going to take a hit because of that Boeing strike. Exactly, right? So that's a big part of it. That being said, over the past couple of jobs report, manufacturing has been coming down. So that's kind of an area that is weaker. Two things that I want to leave you with. One is, we talked about this the other day, right? Inflation and wages not keeping up track with that. In this report, we got 4% over 12 months that you're adding in terms of your hourly wages. That's really good because inflation is more down around that 2.1, 2.3%. So that's good. The bad news is that we got revisions to the past 2 months to the tune of 112,000 lower than what we saw. Revisions happen. That's not a crazy thing. But what that does tell you is the labor market is weakening. And so that is exactly what the Fed wants to see. They want to see a soft landing in the labor market, and how will that influence what they decide later this month? Yeah, so we got the big meeting coming next week. We're likely going to get a quarter-point cut, and you actually are seeing the market up today. Normally, if you saw 12, anticipating that. Exactly. The investors are going, oh, okay, great, a quarter-point cut is coming. What I will say is this, plus a couple of the other pieces that we've seen with inflation, it has called into question, are we going to see a cut in December? Are we going to see a cut in January? But I think coming next week, we're in good shape to get another quarter-point cut. So if you are Kamala Harris, are you still able to get out in front of people and say, look, yes, the numbers this week are not great as far as jobs are concerned, but the U.S. economy is strong, and it's been getting stronger over the last 2 years. You can still make that message if you're Harris?
I think you have to caveat it and say, look, I get it. You're not necessarily feeling it at home, but we do need to wait for those wages to keep up with inflation. I mean, the Trump campaign, they did come out and say, look, we've lost all of these jobs. Both sides, which sometimes they rarely do, Vlad, they need to add context so that the viewer, the voter says, okay, no, I do feel heard.
Yeah, it's easy to cherry pick. Both the Republicans and the Democrats do it every time this report comes out. You know that better than I do, Kelly. Thank you very much. Happy Friday. Good to see you. All right, let's talk about Pennsylvania. A judge there is allowing Elon Musk's $1 million a day voter sweepstakes to continue for now. The judge put the case on hold while Musk tries to move it to federal court. The Philadelphia district attorney filed a lawsuit to stop Musk's political action committee from giving the money away to registered voters in battleground states who signed a petition supporting free speech and gun rights. The DA says it's an illegal lottery scheme to influence voters. Musk's PAT supporters say that they are supporting Donald Trump's presidential campaign. All right, be sure to stay with CBS News for all-day coverage on Election Day. We'll have live reports from our election headquarters in New York and from our team spread out across the country. And remember, special coverage starts at 4 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7. All right, over to the Middle East now, where Israeli jets have carried out strikes over Beirut's southern suburbs for the first time in days. And the strikes come a day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told visiting U.S. officials his country's ability to counter security threats and the return of displaced people were key for any ceasefire along Israel's northern border. Our Holly Williams has more from Tel Aviv.
Israel is continuing to pummel both the Gaza Strip and Lebanon. Overnight, 47 people were killed by Israeli strikes in central Gaza, according to Palestinian media. Today, Israel bombarded the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut. And Israel is also carrying out strikes in the Baalbek region of Lebanon, which is home to UNESCO-listed Roman ruins. Israeli authorities say that 7 people were killed yesterday in northern Israel by fire from Lebanon. Those are the deadliest strikes in this country since Israel invaded southern Lebanon last month. In Gaza, the death toll after over a year of war is now more than 43,000, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The war began after militants from Gaza stormed into Israel on October 7th last year, killing around 1,200 people. Lebanon's health ministry says 2,800 people have been killed in that country since Hezbollah and Israel began exchanging fire in October last year. Despite months of diplomacy, the US, which is Israel's most important and most powerful ally, has so far been unable to broker a ceasefire and hostage deal to end the Israel-Hamas war or to prevent an escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. Back to you.
Holly, thank you very much. Police have arrested a 17-year-old in connection with a mass shooting in Orlando this morning that left 2 people dead and 6 others wounded. It happened around 1 o'clock this morning in the city's busy downtown central business district that was filled with people celebrating Halloween. Orlando police released this surveillance video where you can see the massive crowd scatter once shots are fired. Chief Eric Smith applauded the responding officers' quick response to the shooting.
The officers responded very quickly. The officers did a great job. They responded right when they heard the shooting. You know, as everybody else is running, they're not. They're sitting in their position looking for a shooter. They found a shooter and they took him down.
Police say the victims in the shooting range in age from 19 to 39 years old. The motive for the shooting is not yet known. The death toll is rising after the devastating flooding in Spain. Coming up, an update from Valencia as people there call for aid. We'll be right back. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. North Korea has released footage claiming to show it is test launching an intercontinental ballistic missile with the range to strike the mainland United States. This comes as North Korea's foreign minister has said her country will back Russia until it achieves victory in its war in Ukraine. Joining us now for more on all this is CBS News Pentagon correspondent Ellie Watson. So Ellie, what more are we learning about this launch and what fallout has there been, if any?
Yeah, this launch appears to have had the longest flight time ever recorded for a North Korean missile, 13 minutes longer than the previous record, and has the range theoretically capable of reaching the United States. The test wasn't really a surprise, though. In fact, the South Korean defense minister was here on Wednesday at the Pentagon warning that North Korea may do something like this to exaggerate its existence around the time of the U.S. presidential election. That being said, this was the first ICBM test North Korea has done since last December and comes as there are concerns about what North Korea may be asking Russia for in return for providing Russia with thousands of troops for its war in Ukraine. The South Korean defense minister said North Korea is likely to ask Russia for some cutting-edge technology to advance its weapons programs, including the intercontinental ballistic missile program.
So, Ellie, those troops that this quid pro quo with Russia that you're talking about, we know that North Korean troops are in Russia. Any sense as if whether or not they are engaging with Ukrainian troops?
The latest we've heard is that about 8,000 of the 10,000 North Korean troops in Russia have moved to the Kursk area of Russia and are likely to participate in combat operations against Ukrainians in the next several days. That was according to Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday. Russia has been suffering significant casualties, as many as 1,200 per day, while trying to push Ukrainian forces out of the Kursk area of Russia and keep the pressure on the Ukrainian front lines in eastern Ukraine. These North Korean troops outfitted in Russian uniforms and using Russian equipment could be Putin's way of trying to solve the problem of Kursk without suffering even higher Russian casualties and without calling for a mass mobilization that would be pretty unpopular within Russia.
All right, Ellie Watson reporting this morning from the Pentagon for us. Thank you, Ellie. Appreciate it. Some heartbreaking scenes out of Spain after historic and increasingly deadly flooding this week. Look at this. People there are still desperate for aid days later as they dig their city out of an unbelievable amount of mud. Flooding began after unprecedented rainfall in southern parts of Valencia, and it's so far killed more than 150 people. I want to bring in CBS News senior weather correspondent Rob Marciano with the first look at the national forecast. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Vlad. Touching on that, climate change is certainly playing a part in some of those rain totals. We had above average warmth temperatures in the ocean Atlantic, and that storm tapped into it. And so that will increase your rainfall right away there. But seeing like 20 inches of rain in 8 hours, I mean, that's just crazy. And those scenes are certainly heartbreaking. All right, speaking of warm Atlantic, we've got a 70% chance now. It's still hurricane season. The Western Caribbean to develop into something here. And, some of our models bring this towards the Gulf of Mexico. Watch that carefully. The next storm name, by the way, is Patty, which, by the way, is my mother's name. And she can be tough, so I don't really want this one to be named just yet. All right, let's talk about the warm temperatures we had here across the U.S. Record-breaking heat across the Northeast yesterday for your Halloween. We're still in that mode today, but there's a cold front coming through. And then there's another front that's getting itself together for the weekend that's going to spawn some severe weather and maybe some flooding across the midsection of the country. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, that's the hot spot here. And I think more so Sunday, Monday, from Texas across the plains and in through parts of the Mid-South, could see some damaging winds and some flooding rains, maybe some tornadoes as well. We'll watch it. Vlad?
Thanks so much, man. We'll check in with you a little bit later. Daniel Penny will appear in a New York City courtroom today for opening statements in the trial over the 2023 chokehold death of Jordan Neely. Coming up, what to expect inside the courtroom. Stay with us. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following this morning. One person was killed in a shooting at a mall in Vancouver, Washington that was hosting a Halloween event. A witness told police the suspect fired shots into the food court area of the mall. As of this morning, the suspect is still at large. Police are reviewing surveillance footage in order to identify the suspect. The rapper known as Young Thug pleaded guilty yesterday to a series of charges in exchange for his release. The Grammy winner was originally charged in 2022. Prosecutors accused the hip-hop star of leading a violent street gang that committed murder and other serious crimes. Young Thug made a plea bargain to be freed on time served in jail, but he will serve 15 years probation. And he is under orders to stay out of Atlanta. The rapper told a judge yesterday he takes full responsibility. Striking Boeing workers are set to vote on a new contract proposal Monday. The latest deal presented by the aerospace manufacturer includes a pay raise and a $12,000 bonus, but it doesn't restore the pension program, which has been the main issue. Workers previously rejected 2 separate proposals negotiated by the union and company leadership. According to the New York Times, the economic fallout from the strike is already estimated to be over $9.5 billion. The White House is reacting to a new jobs report this morning showing the lowest gain since 2020. This as President Biden travels to several battleground states this afternoon. For many, that's become the one to watch. We're talking, of course, about Pennsylvania. CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman is live from the White House this morning. So, Willie James, what is the White House saying about the jobs report?
Hey there, Vlad. Good to be with you. Well, the White House isn't necessarily celebrating this jobs report that showed that the U.S. economy added some 12,000 jobs. Analysts expected over 100,000 jobs to be added to the monthly numbers. And the president reacting to this, as you see in your screen there, he said in October, unemployment was unchanged at 4.1%. And he goes on to say how hurricanes Milton and Helene affected the U.S. economy. On top of that, these strikes that you just mentioned there, those Boeing strikes, affected the U.S. economy as well. So the jobs numbers aren't as robust as the White House anticipated that they should be. The president went on to say that he expects that the numbers will be better in November. And he also mentioned the job numbers overall, adding some 16 million jobs since he has been president of the United States. So not celebration, so to speak, but the president talking about the overall picture of the U.S. economy as we head to Election Day, Vlad.
So let's talk about something else, Willie. The garbage gate or the apostrophe gate. The Associated Press is now reporting that the transcript of the president's comments featuring that word was edited, that an apostrophe was added to the word garbage. The supervisor there who's responsible for the White House transcripts says it's a breach of protocol. Can you break that down for our viewers? Because this is an election with consequential, the effects of this election will be consequential. And now we're at this point where we're debating about apostrophes.
Yeah, that's right. The president used the word supporters. We heard the president on a video say that word, but the White House released a transcript saying that he was referring to supporters, meaning the possessive form, an apostrophe S. It's particularly one supporter of the president, the former president, I should note. We have that up on our screen, that Associated Press reporting, but this all stems from that rally over the weekend at Madison Square Garden where a comedian referred to Puerto Rico as an island of floating garbage, essentially, and President Biden was responding to that in a campaign event that was recorded on Zoom or perhaps some other type of platform. But the president essentially said something along the lines of former President Donald Trump's, the only garbage he sees is former President Donald Trump's supporters. But the White House noted that the president sent out a tweet explaining what he meant, in that he was referring to that one particular comedian, not Donald Trump supporters as a whole. And we do have a response from the White House. Deputy White House Press Secretary Andrew Bates, he essentially said that he doubled down and said that the president was referring to this particular person. He said, quote, the president confirmed in his tweet on Tuesday evening that he was addressing the hateful rhetoric from the comedian at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. That was reflected in the transcript. So the White House not coming out and saying outright that they altered this word, but according to Associated Press reporting, that is what happened here. According to that reporting, that apostrophe was added. And I'll note for our viewers at home that this is a little bit of a process. You have the stenographers typically in the room during White House press briefings, and they record everything. And so it goes to a transcript, it goes to the National Archives. It's usually a process, but they're saying that process wasn't followed, that the press office changed that word, added that apostrophe before they could make any type of edits, Vlad.
All right, Willie James Inman, thank you. Appreciate it. And a reminder, stay with CBS News for all-day coverage on Election Day. We'll have live reports from our election headquarters in New York and from our teams spread out across the country. And remember, special coverage starts at 4 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7. Let's take you now to Athens, Georgia, where a hearing is underway for Jose Ibarra. He is the man accused of killing nursing student Laken Riley. They are discussing some of the evidence on the case. Of course, this case has been a hot-button issue on the campaign trail. We're going to keep an eye on this hearing, bring you any developments as warranted. Meanwhile, to another trial now. The long-awaited trial of Daniel Penny is officially underway. Opening statements began this morning in the Marine veteran's manslaughter case. It stems from a fatal chokehold incident on a New York City subway last year. Prosecutors say Penny acted negligently in the death of Jordan Neely and should have known better given his military training. Let's get right to CBS News contributor Jessica Levinson, who's joining us now from Los Angeles. Jessica, good to see you. So what are the arguments that so far we've heard from both the prosecutors and the defense counsel?
We're seeing previews of two very different arguments here. The prosecutor saying that Neely used much more force than he needed to, that Penny used much more force than he needed to when he was trying to subdue Neely, that he used an excessive amount of force and that he ignored a substantial risk. That, yes, maybe you need to help stabilize things for a moment, but not for 4 minutes. And for the defense, we hear the story instead of somebody who was acting heroically to try and protect others. The defense will argue that Neely was high on drugs and that this was the only way to try and subdue him until the police could come. What we're also going to hear throughout the trial is very different pieces of testimony from the witnesses there. Some saying that Neely was specifically threatening them, and others saying he just in general was agitated. And that will make a difference for whether or not Penny's use of force was reasonable or not.
So, Jessica, it also seems that the jury selection process was also quite contentious. More than 100 jurors were screened. There were allegations of whitewashing. Tell us about the process and what whitewashing is for people who may not know that term.
So whitewashing is essentially trying to get a white jury. This is a case that obviously has huge racial overtones here and undertones. This is a case where we're talking about a white former Marine who ultimately put a Black homeless person into a chokehold that led to his death. There's no question about those big issues. And so there are huge racial implications here. And people tend to view a lot of issues in America today, not just through a lens of criminal justice, but also race. And what we see here in the allegations of jury selection is that the prosecutors essentially wanted an all-white jury. That's not what they got here. But that is what we talk about when we say we were trying to whitewash the jury.
All right, Jessica Levinson with some crucial details for us this morning. Thank you, Jessica. Good to see you. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is expected to be back in court today for a hearing where his lawyers are asking for his bribery charge to be tossed out. They argued it does not fit the federal standard of a crime. Adams says that what prosecutors allege is proof he was in the pocket of foreign officials, and that was simply business as usual. He's accused of receiving more than $100,000 of benefits. He's the first New York City mayor ever to face federal charges while in office. All right, Los Angeles will be celebrating the Dodgers World Series title with a victory parade today. Coming up, a preview of the festivities in the City of Angels. We'll be right back. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Oh my gosh, it's so loud.
Oh, look at that. We're looking over at our friends Jamie Yuccas and Rudabeh Shemezi. They are now covering the Los Angeles Dodgers victory parade that is beginning in downtown Los Angeles. You're looking at live coverage from, of course, our sister network, CBS News Los Angeles. We're going to keep checking in with Jamie and Rudabeh throughout the day because that, of course, as you can imagine, CBS LA is going to be all over this, right? It's the Dodgers. It's LA. There they are. So get this, the World Series championship Dodgers, they're finally back home. And so this reason we're showing you this is because the post-game celebrations, it's been building up with this much anticipated parade. And that is where we find CBS News Los Angeles reporter Cara Finstrom. So Cara, we were just showing Jamie and Rudabeh. They're cheering on the Dodgers. You're in the thick of it on the street there. What are folks telling you about how happy they are?
Oh, we are so excited. You know, we didn't get to have our parade back in 2020, so we're having an extra big one today. Take a look at this. We're still 3.5 hours out from parade time, and look at these fans. They are lining the streets here along this route. It starts at City Hall. It continues through these streets, and folks are just coming out. Some of them took a day off of work. Some of them tell us they're playing hooky. We're not going to tell on them because they wanted to come out and wear their blue pride and bring those flags out and share their joy for this championship with the rest of the world.
You mentioned it, right? The Dodgers couldn't party like this when they took the win back in 2020. Beyond the parade, what else is happening around town?
So over at Dodger Stadium, there is a ticketed event that is sold out. Once those double-decker buses go through here, they'll head over to the stadium, and those fans will then be able to cheer them on and enjoy a little celebration there. I do want to bring in some of our fans here. We've got Nathan and also his mom and a cousin also out here. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to come out here, Nathan, and cheer on the Dodgers.
Because I've always been a fan of them, and this is my first parade going here. And I was super excited to come.
Yeah, well, not only your first parade, the first parade for a lot of us because we haven't had one since 1988. Mom, you're a big fan too.
Yes, since I was like 4. And then my nephew is a big fan.
Tell me, you got a nice jersey on there. Tell me about your excitement today.
I just want to come and support the Dodgers. Like, I love them. I've been a fan since I was a baby.
You guys are so sweet. Have fun today as a family. Vlad, I got to tell you, some of these folks are sleep deprived, as am I, because we have been staying up every night watching these Dodgers, really take this down. Especially the last game was a little bit of a nail biter.
So you know what we're talking about here in New York, Cara? We're all wondering why the owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, would fly the Dodgers home on his plane. Like, what's he trying? Is he trying to send a message to New York by saying, hey, we never got over Babe Ruth, so we're over in Boston, we're really still salty that the Yankees stole Babe Ruth from us way back, like before my grandmother was born, and so we're going to fly the Dodgers on my Patriots plane. What's going on with that?
I did see the Dodgers president and CEO. I spoke with him right after they landed on the ground yesterday. He was there with his grandson, and I asked him that because he did get off that Patriot plane, and he said, we do this quite often. We share with the Patriots, which I thought that was kind of interesting because we all also wondered the same thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think they're just trolling us. Cara Finstrom, enjoy the celebration. Appreciate you. Thank you. All right, let's bring in CBS News senior weather correspondent Rob Marciano with another look at the national. Robert Kraft is trolling us, right?
I mean, if it's not painful enough, lad, this has been a horrifying week. I mean, my goodness. And it's for the Yankee fans that are suffering, not just seeing that, but, I mean, how many of us, no, I'm not wishing this, but maybe have it rain on their parade today?
Yeah,
that would kill a little bit.
Conjure that up. Conjure that up, Marciano. Make it happen.
It's beautiful Southern California weather for the first day of November. A chilly start. You saw them with their light jackets on, and they get up to about 66 degrees with some sunshine. So, hey, look, Dodgers were the better team. Congratulations to them. But it's still painful, and it's very painful to watch him come off a Patriot plane as well. All right, let's talk. I don't even know what's next. You got me so flustered here. The temperatures, yeah, it's been record high temperatures, and now we got a front that's pushing across the east. So temps are up and over 80 degrees for parts of the Northeast for Halloween. Behind this is drier weather, and the Pacific Northwest has a front that's coming through, and they've got some heavier rain there. But the temperatures today are just as warm, almost as warm as they were yesterday across the East Coast, about 15 to 25 degrees above average before the cool front comes through tomorrow. So you'll watch the darker colors begin to sink down a little bit farther to the south, and the Northeast will be in more average territory. But then the heat begins to build as we go through Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and a threat for severe weather ahead of that. By the way, speaking of Sunday, we turn the clocks back. All right, so that brings a smile to some New Yorkers, I think. We get an extra hours of sleep. I could use that come Sunday morning, so we'll take that. All right, mentioning the severe weather threat, we have that across the southern plains, includes Dallas. Saturday, more so Sunday, Monday into Little Rock, Joplin up through St. Louis. These could have some damaging winds, maybe some hail, certainly some flooding rain. Some of these storms are going to train, and we could see the threat for seeing tornadoes, especially Sunday and Monday. And lastly, it's not yet done. We're not yet done with hurricane season, even though it's November, goes through the entire end of the month. And we do have a disturbance here in the Western Caribbean that is now at 70% chance to develop into a tropical cyclone over the next 7 days. And this could very well drift towards the Gulf of Mexico, so we'll have to watch that. On top of everything else, including the Dodgers victory parade today in Los Angeles. Vlad.
All right, Rob Marciano for us. Rob, thank you very much. Okay, coming up, a certain celebrity went above and beyond for Halloween with an out-of-this-world costume. We'll tell you who is behind that E.T. outfit after the break. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. All right, you're looking at pictures that just came into us from just moments ago. There is the Vice President of the United States. She's departing Las Vegas, Nevada. She's on her way to Wisconsin, obviously an important battleground state, as the election now is just 5 days away. Obviously, we're going to keep an eye out on the Vice President movements as well as the movements of former President Donald Trump and bring you any news as warranted. Meanwhile, we're fully now into fall, but it appears that Brat summer is here to stay. Y'all old timers know what Brat summer is? You guys in the studio? Yeah? What? They don't know. Brat was just named the word of the year by Collins Dictionary. In Britain, the term was popularized a few months ago when it was used as the title for British pop star Charli XCX's album. According to Collins Dictionary, Brat means characterized by a confident, independent, and hedonistic attitude. So the question is, are you Brat? None of these guys are, but this guy, very Brat. Very Brat. Very demure. All right. Very demure. All right. Heidi Klum phoned home for her much-anticipated Halloween costume this year. The supermodel was unrecognizable once again this year, this time as the blonde version of E.T. the extraterrestrial.
I think it came out great. It's a costume that's been in the making for 1 year. I have been a fan of E.T. since I'm 9 years old. The real head, my real head couldn't be the real head because E.T. has a really long neck, so I'm a disguise in the neck.
I mean, pretty ingenious. If you see her neck moving there, it's sort of the way mine is because I'm old. That's the way my neck looks like when I'm talking. And I don't even have a human standing in there. It's just my folds and my, saggy neck. Very, very cool. I love it. Every year she thrills. Let's bring back CBS News senior weather correspondent Rob Marciano with one last look.
Your neck is not doing that. No, come on. Brad, for a demure gentleman like yourself, and you keep everything well under control. But she always tops herself every year. It's pretty amazing.
She really does.
I mean, that's Hollywood stuff for sure. Hi again. Just to recap what's going on nationally with the weather, we have the record-breaking heat across the east. We have the front that's pushing through now. Very light rains along this front. What you're going to notice if you live in this area, the temperatures are going to drop, especially tonight. The winds are going to pick up. It's going to be blustery. A lot of folks in the Northeast dealing with peak foliage, and a lot of those leaves are going to be coming down tonight, and tomorrow. So if you're looking for a day to wait, to procrastinate, raking leaves, wait till Sunday when the winds calm down. This way, you'll have a better chance of it. Temperatures are going to drop down to more seasonable levels from the 70s and 80s today across the east down to the 50s, and then pretty nice weather until we get those storms across the southern plains this weekend. Fly back over to you.
All right, Rob. Thanks very much, my friend. Have a nice weekend. That does it for me, but stay right where you are. After the break, Elizabeth Cook is live from San Francisco with all the breaking news from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7.